So don't round things off too much unless you have to. That's the general answer. We could have also calculated these things one by one. Take the amount, divide that by 1 plus the interest rate, fix it, raise to the power number of periods. In case you didn't know, let me show you what would happen if I didn't fix it. I get weird stuff. The reason I get weird stuff, I put interest rate as a relative reference. Okay, that means when I copy that formula and paste somewhere else, its row and column references are going to be shifted, which may or may not be something you want. I want the row references to be shifted, but I don't want the reference to the interest rate to shift. And on the next column, next formula, by the way, if you double click on a cell that has a formula or hit F2, not only it shows you the formula in line, but it also highlights the cell to which that formula depends as long as it's in the visible range. Okay, so it refers to period two, $105, but it also refers to that blank cell, which is not what I want. Why? Because that F7 was shifted by one row when I pasted that formula just one row below. To prevent that, we use the absolute reference. And if I add them up using the sum function, that is indeed the present value of those cash flows. Okay. I also have the nasty habit of, if I have a cell that's a formula, I format it such that it has a red background. In this case, I'm using the Welsh red. In case you want to know, that's hex code. Let me see, C8102E. Hex is short for hexadecimal. And you can represent 1,048,576 numbers, different colors using hex code because it has 6 digits. Hex is short for hexadecimal. Anybody knows what a hexadecimal number is? You heard of the decimal numbers, right? The decimal system numbers are from 0 to 9. Then you get 10, which is 1 0. Then once you're out of tens, you have 100. So the last digit is 0 power. Uh, the second, the digit before that is 10 to the power 1, 10 to the power 2. There is nothing that stops me from doing the same thing. For example, you can do binary numbers. The numbers are either 0 or 1. For example, 1, 1 in binary would be exactly equal to 3. Okay? The first digit is first power of 2. So you have one of them 2, then add a 1. Hexadecimals are used quite a bit in computing. In fact, the number of rows that you can have in an Excel sheet is exactly 1,048,576. That is 16 raised to the power 5. But in hexadecimal numbers, you start from 0, you go up to 9, and you go A, B, C, D, E, E, F. F is equal to 15, for example. After I got older, I converted my age to hexadecimal numbers. Currently, I am 3C years old. 3 is the number of 16s in my age. That's 48. And I add 12 more, and 12 is equal to C in hexadecimal numbers. So I'm 60 years old. Next year, I'll be 3D. All right. Now, that is not too much of an effort if you're going to do this only once, right? Again, if when the interest rate is actually greater than the growth rate, there is an exact formula to calculate it. But that formula depends crucially interest rate being greater than the growth rate. And a lot of calculations, especially in two-stage growth model or residual income model, that may or may not be available to you. So we need a function to do all of that. So let's go ahead and write our own function. Now, to use any kind of EBA, you need to do two things. One, my file is already of that type, so let me open up a new one. You save your file, save as, and I'm going to do it on this PC because OneDrive doesn't allow macro-enabled stuff. I'm going to call this macro-enabled workbook. It will get an extension of XLSM instead of XLSX. Okay. Give it any name you like. Say. Otherwise, any code that you write is not going to be saved, which is something that you want. And two, you need developer tab on your ribbon. Okay. If you don't have it, which means you haven't used it before, on your own computer, do this only once. On these computers, unfortunately, you have to do it all the time because every time you log off, it reverts back to its original settings. Click on anything on the ribbon. Once the ribbon is down, right click, customize the ribbon, find the developer tab, make sure it's checked. The location of that is also customizable. I am left eye dominant, so I like it on my left. If you like it on your right, put it to your right. Now it's here, okay? Wherever you want. That developer tab is now available to you every time you use your own computer. Now, on that, has everybody gotten their developer tab? Okay. Click on the developer tab and hit Visual Basic. Okay. Now, that's my iGumry stuff, but I'm going to use this on this new sheet that I created, Book 1. And click on that file name and hit Insert Module. A module is basically white space for you to write your code on. That's it. Nothing more than that. There is also something over there, a class module. That's for series programmers. If you're doing object-oriented programming, you create data classes and stuff. Unless you know what you're doing, don't get involved in that. Mine starts with something that says option explicit. Yours probably does not have that because I have an option that I turn on whenever we create, and I'm going to show you what that means. Local variables, I want to type the data type explicitly. That's good programming discipline. You don't have to, but I've been kind of raised that way. All right. First, let's write a simple function. Now, there are two things you write on a regular module. One is the function. A function, as the name suggests, I give you inputs, you give me an output. That's it. Done. Another one is called a sub. A sub doesn't return anything to Excel, to the worksheet. You can have subs with arguments, but we'll get to that if need be. A sub simply performs a function. Okay? I'll give you a simple example of that as well. So let's do a simple example of a sub. Let's say there is something that you do a lot. You see me color Valve screen background, white font, bold, right? I do that all the time. I do the same thing with red as well. Let's ask Excel to generate the code for that. It's called recording a macro. Under developer tab, hit record macro, give it the name, well screen cell. Could be any name where nobody has property rights on, but it has to be contiguous characters on this workbook. You can even assign a shortcut to that. For example, I want control, I don't know, G, control shift G to be my shortcut. You don't have to. I could also write a description if I wanted to. And nobody cares about your spelling. It's a comment. Just do whatever you were going to do. My lock screen, which is the hex code of 00 B140, white font and bold. I'm done. I'm going to say developer, stop recording. Okay. Now, if I go to developer macros and find that macro, well, screen cell, let's do an edit. That's actually the code Excel generated. Okay. If you didn't know how to change the colors in VBA, let Excel figure it out for you. If you want to change the colors, find the proper color code. And this basically says it starts with selection. So this works on whatever that is selected. So if you had two cells selected already, it works on that. If you had one cell selected, it works on that. With selections interior, do these. With selections one, do these, done. Now I can do two things with that one. I use that a lot, so it may not be a bad idea for me to put it under quick access toolbar.